So you want to get married, huh? That's great. Today we'll talk about how that's your responsibility, how you can develop attractiveness for others, and find someone that will be honoring to God and fulfilling in your life. I'm Jonathan Yellen, and this is Finding the Point. Hey folks, welcome to Finding the Point. I'm Jonathan Yellen, board certified behavior analyst. We're so glad to have you here today. With us, of course, is Pastor Aaron Mudge. Pastor Aaron, we're talking about marriage and basically how to get married if you're not there yet. Got any tips and advice for us today?
Well, I think we've got a lot of things to say.
Boy, do we. There's a whole list. We put so many verses in here, guys. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah. We talked about, I guess for me, my perspective in this is, I keep thinking, if I could go back and tell myself back in college, like, some of these things, I just kind of want to put my hands on my shoulders and be like, come on, Mudge, put it together. You're not going to find somebody doing these things.
Oh, I so many times wish I could go back and coach the younger me on how to not be such a relationship failure back in college. It was some bad choices. And so hopefully from those mistakes, and I did learn from my mistakes, and I got married and very happily married today, and I know you did as well. So
yep.
The Bible has some good tips and advice for us, and there's a lot of good tips and advice from natural revelation. But Pastor, I think, and this doesn't seem like necessarily a thing that you would consider needing to do, but the first thing to do, I think, is to make the case for, actually, you probably should go get married.
Yeah, I agree. In our society, marriage is not valued as it ought to be. Even in Christian circles, I'm afraid that ideology is creeping in, and marriage is not something that is valued as it should be.
Yeah, it's almost like the whole marriage, it's just a piece of paper. And for many people, I think it is. It's lost the significance of what it means and is meant to be. And you can go watch the last two episodes if you're, where we went into that in detail. But it is something valuable, and it's actually God's plan for pretty much everybody to get married.
Yeah.
There is a very, very small number of people who might be in a position where it's not really realistic or practical for them to be married. A very, very, very small number. So, Proverbs 18:22 says, "Whoso findeth a wife findeth a good thing and obtaineth favor of the Lord." I mean, God recognizes the value of marriage. And essentially, if you're someone who has any sort of desire for, let's call it interpersonal relations with someone, you pretty much need to get married. Like I maybe that sounds like, Pastor, correct me if I'm going too strong on that, but I really do think, just like if you're a man or a woman and you have any desire at all for the opposite, then you need to go get married. You need to put in the effort and time and make it happen and lock it down.
I agree. 1 Corinthians 7:9 says, "But if they cannot contain, let them marry, for it is better to marry than to burn." It the same idea. If you have that desire, you should find someone to get married, and so that you can have that relationship and that life together.
Yeah, and I know it might sound like we're just talking about the sexual side of things, but realistically, beyond that, it's a huge benefit for men and women to be together because of the marital synergy we've talked about before, because of the support and care and love and enrichment that comes to your life from having that relationship, because of the value and joy from having children. Or I mean, not everyone can have children, but even having a framework to adopt children or just be together, all of that's valuable. We've got Genesis 2:18 today, and the Lord God said, "It's not good that the man should be alone. I'll make a helpmeet for him." It's a beautiful thing to have a marriage relationship. And I think if you're someone who doesn't have one and you've been listening over the course of this marriage series that we've been doing, you may be thinking, well, I would really love to have that marriage relationship and I'd love to be married, but it's not really working for me. So, Pastor Aaron, what would you say to somebody who's thinking like that?
Well, I guess just as I would counsel a couple that was coming to me and they needed some marital counseling, my counsel would be, don't focus on what the other person is or is not doing. Focus on what you should be doing in the marital relationship. And it's the same if you're looking for someone. I think it's important for us to focus on what are the things that I can be doing in my life to make myself someone that would be attractive for another person, for that person that God might, that it be leading me towards, or that I will end up getting married to.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. The way I put it would be that maybe the best approach to finding someone else and getting that relationship to happen is to get your own house in order.
Yep.
And set yourself up to be someone who's going to easily attract that other person. So as a Christian, I think then you would say the first step, get your heart and life as right as you can.
That's right. Choose God and God's way, follow him. And
Right.
That's why, we made the case for the value of marriage. God values marriage, so if you're valuing God's way, this is something that is going to be valuable to you. And yeah, make sure that you're doing right and you're following God.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think since your marriage is ultimately a spiritual thing, it's a covenant before God. You've got to have things right with God if you're going to engage rightly in a covenant with God and another person. So I think step one, make sure your heart is right. Make sure your life is right. Make sure you're following God. You're not harboring any secret sins. You've got it all out there. You confessed it. You're doing right and living right the best that you can. That, I think, is step one. I would say then with that, once you got that together, you're going to also need to make sure you've worked out what your values are and what your top priorities are. Because whoever you end up marrying is going to need to have those shared values.
Yep.
I think, Pastor Aaron, a lot of times people, when they think about dating and relationships, they're like, oh, I got to find somebody who has the same interest in me. You're like, oh, how many teenage boys are like, oh, I really hope I find a girl who likes video games like I do. It's like, okay, yeah, maybe you will, maybe you won't, man. But let me tell you, it's not going to matter. That is
that's
important.
not what's going to get you through life. Values, like you
Yeah.
said, especially as a Christian. And make sure that you're finding someone that values God and values the things of the Lord and the things of the Bible and doctrine and teachings as you do. And you have to make sure that you know what your values are first.
Absolutely. And of course, that starts with salvation, and then that starts with a dedication to God and God's way. And you know what's important for you. Like, if you want to go be a missionary, and missions and international missions is important to you, and that's one of your Christian values. If you end up attracted to a girl who's no interest at all in, does not find a strong value in international missions, maybe not to her detriment, maybe she just is much more concerned with home field missions, or maybe she's really concerned with, like, I'm really concerned about the youth and school and education, and so maybe that's her focus. It's like, I'm not really interested in going to China. I really want to help teach Christian kids and be a Christian school teacher. Like, that would be a conflict in values potentially that might be disruptive.
Right.
So it's not necessarily that I have good values and so I need someone else who, but values the things that are important to you align, and you can't identify that if you haven't stopped to identify it. And then, of course, you've got to be equally yoked with that person. And
Right.
You know.
Right, yeah, like 2 Corinthians 6:14, be ye not unequally yoked together with unbelievers, or for what fellowship hath righteousness with unrighteousness, and what communion hath light with darkness? And as a pastor, I'd say first thing, if you're looking for that person, make sure that they are saved. Make sure that they're a believer. It's not going to work if they're not. Yes, I know there's situations where a saved person can bring someone to the Lord, but that's not ideal. Make sure they're saved, and make sure that they value God and the things of God as you do. You know, maybe they're saved, but if they're not really that concerned about spiritual things, and you are, that's going to be a problem for you.
Yeah, there will be conflicts there, because if you're not together in values, I mean, certain values conflict. Let's take that benign version I brought up before. Let's say she values and thinks it's really important to help educate kids in God's way, like Christian education is really important value, and international missions is a really important value for you. Well, those values, both important, both valid, both God honoring,
right,
they're in conflict, because you can't be focused on fixing the American education system through Christian schooling, and also dedicating your life to vocational international missions. They're incompatible. And maybe you could find a way to make them compatible, you know, like teaching in overseas missions. That could be a thing. And there's ways to align your values that could make them compatible. But you can't do that, and you can't even find some way to start your values together if you don't know what your own values are. So you got to get your values together. You got to find someone who shares those values. That first and most important value that you have to align on, salvation. You both just have, and missionary dating is not missionary, and it's not good for your romantic life. It's going to cause you problems. So with that out of the way, Pastor Aaron, it's time to go to the meat and potatoes here that all those single fellows clicked on the video for.
Yeah, so what are the things that I can do to make myself more attractive, or, you know, make girls like me?
Right, okay, so let's start off, because I don't want to get lynched, with the big disclaimer. All right, all this stuff is generalizations. None of it is like set in stone, this will always work. You know, we're generalizing concepts that you're going to need to
follow these 10 rules, and you will find the best person.
Yeah, number 7 will shock you. You know, this is not the clickbait article. We're going to teach broad concepts of how this stuff works, and then you're going to have to figure out how to apply it personally that works for you, because there's so many moving parts. So many different things to it. Just recognize, disclaimer, this is general information. This is not the prescription that will solve your life. If you need that, feel free to contact my behavior analytic consulting services company. I don't have one of those, Aaron, but I should, because then people could call, and then I could give relationship advice to myself in the past. All right, let's go on to... I really want that time machine now. You got me going on it. All right, so guys and girls, we're talking about getting a relationship started with somebody. So from the psychological perspective, friendships and relationships, all of the interpersonal stuff that makes us value that relationship together is essentially a function of reinforcement. Now, in psychology, reinforcement specifically means something that increases your behavior. We can use it in the sense today as it makes you feel good, which is way overgeneralizing. So all my teachers at grad school, please don't at me. But essentially, reinforcement is it makes you feel good, so you like it, and you want to do more thing. You want to do the things it takes to get that thing again. Okay, so in a relationship, you even with like friends, okay, like Pastor Aaron, you and I have been friends for so many years at this point. I don't actually know the number. and we'll get on the phone or on Zoom and talk for a long time, and we have this conversation together, and it's reinforcing. All right, I listen to your ideas and pay attention to you listen to my ideas and pay attention to me, and that exchange, we both benefit because we both enjoy that experience. It makes me feel good to have you listen to me. It's interesting to my mind to hear the ideas that you come up with. So this interaction back and forth in our friendship is reinforcing. It feels good to have that conversation. And so essentially, more or less, all relationships that are built on friendship are built on that idea of reinforcement. It feels good when you do it. So when you're talking about trying to build a relationship with a potential marriage partner, you essentially need to present yourself in a way and interact with this person in a way that will provide reinforcement to them. And if you are a person who provides reinforcement, that makes you attractive, that makes people want to be around you, and then that makes that person interested in you and value you, and then that helps you have the opportunity to develop that into something where you're ready to commit to the covenant of marriage. So the first idea here, attraction, is based on this idea of reinforcement. When you interact with that person, it makes them feel good. Okay, so that's it. How do we do that? That's the question to ask ourselves. Okay, so how do we do that? There's basically 3 components to look at. So if you're going to develop this relationship, you're going to need to make yourself attractive. You need to make yourself a high status person, and then you need to make yourself available. Does that make sense?
So make yourself attractive, high status, and what was the third one?
Available. So
available.
Like, you're around other people who would be attracted to your attractiveness and high status.
So for me, my question would be, so how do I make myself attractive, and what do we mean by high status, and how do I do that?
Well, that's a great question, because that's what we're going to talk about next. So, okay, so it gets a little tricky because there's differences between men and women. All right, so the things that men find attractive in women and the things that women find attractive in men are different. So I guess we'll have to break down both sides and talk about it. But the components to attractiveness are essentially your physical beauty, your personality or personal magnetism is another way to think about it, and then your fitness for marital roles. Those are essentially the components of your attractiveness. So when it comes to physical beauty, obviously there's different components of beauty for men than for women. Generally, you can generalize the concepts into this. Women are attractive who are healthy and capable of having kids, and they look like they're healthy and capable of having kids. Men are attractive when they look like they can kill stuff and take care of themselves and protect others. That's just the things that's what's built into us. In psychology, we'd call this unconditioned reinforcement. It's just you don't have to have any experience with it. You don't have to have any training. You can see that girl. Like, you don't even need to know biologically that she's more capable of having kids or more healthy. Like, you see it and your brain says, "Yep, that's what you like." And and for women it's the same way, just with different things. So I gave really general categories there, but realistically, women, if you are able to just dress attractively and be physically fit, that's a huge advantage for physical beauty. Men, if you can groom yourself, take care of your shower, make sure you smell nice, make sure you dress well, those are all things that add to that physical beauty component. Women, I'm sorry, I don't have any great advice for you on how to do that practically. Feel free to message the show and I'll have my wife contact you. She's really good at that stuff. Men, I have a website you can check out. It's called The Art of Manliness. The guy who writes there is a Mormon, so take almost all of his stuff with a grain of salt there. But he has great advice for fashion and men's dress and grooming and self-care stuff.
Yeah, and he just has some fun stuff in there. Even I don't know, just manly
There's like
things.
how to start a fire, how to start a fire with
Yeah.
like a paper clip and a broken pencil or something. Like,
Yeah.
that's not really an article, but that kind of stuff. It's fun stuff. But there's a lot of great fashion advice, and he does subscribe to the concept of physical beauty is objective, and that we can access it using some technique. Like, for instance, Pastor Aaron, we wear suit jackets. Why is a suit jacket endured for so many years? Well, because the design of that coat makes men look stronger and bigger and more capable of killing stuff, taking care of themselves, and protecting others. So that, contributes to men looking more physically attractive in a suit.
Yep. And some of those things, I remember that's the site I learned how to iron my shirts back in college when I was trying to get myself put together a little more.
Yeah. So, and that kind of stuff makes a huge difference because look, now you're married. So, you have your components, physical attractiveness, and then on personal magnetism. That's the second component. So how good are you at attracting others? How attractive are you in a social situation? So it's more like the physical beauty. That's just how you look. But then this is more of like how enjoyable it is to be around you. Is your personality appealing?
Personality.
And you'd think there's this whole complicated, like, here's how to be this, and that technically there is, but it really breaks down into some easy to understand categories. Essentially, quality attention from a person who has high status is really reinforcing. It just is. Attention from someone who's low status is not very reinforcing at all. So, now, when we're talking about status for men is different than status for women, generally speaking. And so the question would then be, okay, how can you make yourself high status? Because it's easy to just pick someone that you like and is attractive and pay attention to them. And if you're a high status person, then they're going to find that reinforcing and enjoy your company, assuming, you're not being a jerk and you're showing genuine care and interest in that person, and it's genuine and real, and you're being warm and sincere. They're going to find that attractive, and that's that personal magnetism. Okay, so then, Pastor Aaron, the question is, how do you make yourself a high status person?
I don't know. I think my first question would be, what do you mean by status?
Well, yeah, that's a great question. So what do we mean by status? Well, we're looking at someone who is valuable in comparison to their peers. And so
Okay.
I know from the Bible concept, right? Compare themselves among themselves is not wise.
Right.
And this isn't necessarily the sort of thing where we're like analyzing a group of people and giving them all ratings and then working it out and then saying, okay, this person's higher status, so it is just these things happen without us thinking about it. It's not exactly a reflex, but it's a conditioned operant at least. You're not thinking about this with words. It's just a way you react to people, and you've been conditioned to react to people. So, for instance, Pastor Aaron, if I walk into the room and I'm like, hey, everybody, how y'all doing today? I'm Jonathan, and I'm in charge here. If you have any questions, come ask me. All right, that's a high status person. And then I walk over to, and then I can walk over and talk to somebody like, hey, you're new here. It's great to see you today. Are you visiting town, or do you live in town here? It's great to have you at the church today. Like that's a high status person, and now I'm paying attention to someone, and they're going to find that reinforcing. As long as I'm not like too intense or, just being unpleasant.
Right.
As long as I'm being warm and sincere and interested and that's going to be something that they're going to find reinforcing. All right. Okay. Now, alternatively, I could come in and just be kind of like, hi guys. Yeah, I'm Jonathan. I'm just going to be over here. And then that guy who walks up to some girls like, hi, I think you're pretty. she's probably gonna be like, I think you're pretty weird. You know, so even things like how you carry yourself can show your status level.
Okay. Sure.
For men especially, women status is a little bit more complicated because of all the relationship stuff that they like to fight over. That's some of the feminine vices, so fix that in your life if that's you. But essentially, when we're talking about making yourself high status, women are valuing, from men, women are valuing competence, and men are valuing youth and beauty. When we're talking about relationship status and the status you might have there. So let's talk about what women want first, because that's first on the program.
Because ladies first.
Ladies first. That's right. Ladies first. So women want competence. They want men who are capable, right? Because that kind of goes back with, the physical attractiveness. The physical attractiveness things are all signal capability and capacity to be skilled.
And I think, like, I'm already seeing, I mean, this goes back to some of the roles that we talked about within marriage. If we understand the marital roles, the role that God has given to the man is to be the caregiver, the protector, the spear is the analogy we used, right? The power of the spear. And I'm already thinking, because maybe there's people watching that are married and like, oh, well, this is all about how to get married. It doesn't really help me. But all of these things connect because these are things you can work on to find somebody, but these things are things we should be working on even after we're married.
Absolutely. Because how sad would your marriage be? You get that covenant locked in and then you're just like, well, that's done. I'm not going to work on this anymore.
Yep.
I still want to be attractive to my wife. I still want her to find me just as interested in me as when we were dating and got married.
Right.
So maintaining this stuff is just as important as developing it. Of course, we're in this framework of I wish I could go back and tell my college self
right
how to not be a loser, but realistically, I could become a loser now by abandoning these modes of demonstrating attractiveness.
So competency, you're saying now, I'm assuming you mean like to be really good at something, and obviously it would have to be something that a woman or the woman I'm interested in would value, right?
Yeah. And realistically, Aaron, it's not actual skill, it's being seen in the community and specifically by the person that you're trying to attract.
Okay.
As someone who has a high level of skill in an area that person values. So like the classic example of the football quarterback can just date any girl in the school he wants. Well, that's only true if every girl in the school is interested in football or values athletic success as a measure of competence. Maybe not all girls do that, and so you got those girls like, oh, him, I would never date him, So, but then again, who knows, maybe they would, because that's a pretty high value, high status position in the community of a school. So, like I said, this is generalized stuff. There's nothing cut and dry. It's not like I become the quarterback, now I get all the girls. It's not that simple. But when you make yourself a higher status person, higher status being demonstrating competency and skill, maybe it's social competency, maybe it's in a specific skill area, the better you're at, you demonstrate success and skill in something.
Okay.
The higher you are in this hierarchy of who's good, so the greater social value you have, and that social status value makes you someone who's more likely to be attractive, and makes it so that when you pay attention to that person, there's more reinforcement occurring.
That makes sense.
So you might say then, Well, Jonathan, that's all well and good, but I'm kind of a loser. I'm not the best at anything. I'm not even close to being the football star.
Not even really good at yo-yo?
Yeah, well, and that's another thing to go back and tell young Mr. Jonathan about. I was actually super good at yo-yoing and did competitions for yo-yoing in college, but it's kind of a loser skill to be good at. For instance, if you guys are out there, you're like, well, I'm the best there's ever been at Call of Duty, or my favorite computer game of choice. Well, first off, no, you're not, because if you were, you would actually be competing and making millions of dollars on it. But number two, that's not something that gives you increased status because it's not highly valued in your community. Probably.
So guys, video games don't really count.
Yeah, they're not. Now, Aaron, it's possible that there's some sort of like subculture community living, like in Silicon Valley where everyone's vying to be like the number one, and there's a lot of money and status and power in the subculture. Maybe
Sure.
that exists, but let's be honest, guys. That's not what's going on.
No. So the competency, I mean, it does matter what it is you're competent about. Now, my assumption, correct me if I'm wrong, but my assumption is skills that would demonstrate to someone, to a girl, that you are capable of protecting and taking care of and providing for. Those kind of skills would, generally be pretty valuable, right?
Yeah, and just as nerdy as like karate is, if you're a black belt in karate, that's a lot better than being a black belt in Call of Duty. Do they have black belts in Call of Duty? I don't know. I don't know.
I don't really have that much time for it anymore.
Yeah. So demonstrating competence in something that your social group, your subculture finds valuable, that gives you high status. So and if you're saying, all right, Jonathan, that's really lame because I'm kind of a loser and I'm bad at everything, the good news is there are a lot of different things that you can be the best at. And there's enough different things that pretty much everybody can find something that they can be the best at. So figure out where's your area of skill and then use that skill and discipline it. Maybe you're not a football player, but maybe you're really good at music. So there's girls who would love to date the quarterback, but there's also girls who would find, your band section leader as a potentially attractive guy. Now I'm going back to high school now, but pick your setting. What are the things that people are going to find valuable? And you don't have to be even number one, Pastor Aaron. If you can get in like the top 20%, that's going to look competent. And you're going to look like you're a high set. You don't have to be you don't have to be the king, okay? You can be some kind of nobleman, all right? you can be the baron or vicomte, whatever, if you're French. But realistically, you just need to demonstrate that level of competence and have some semblance of social status in whatever group you're trying to interact with. And if you have that, then you can pay attention, and that attention will provide reinforcement. It's personal magnetism. Basically, just be someone valuable and pay attention with warmth and love, and people will like it. People will like you.
To me, I think, thinking back on to telling my younger self, I think that would be something I would be drawn to. As a guy, like, all right, developing a skill in an area is something that, I don't know, I guess a lot of guys, at least me, that seems attractive too, find an area you like and develop that skill.
Yeah, and just making sure that it's something that's socially valued by whatever community you're part of. You're probably if you're a guy who can be like, yeah, I can smoke a pack of cigarettes in inside a minute, and you try to demonstrate that in a church setting.
Yeah, that's not going to work.
Yeah, but maybe that makes you really cool at the biker gang bar. I don't know. I've never been to one.
So even then, I mean, as a Christian looking for Christian woman or a Christian guy looking for someone you're going to marry. In Christian settings, things like you said, music, or even teaching in Sunday school, like some of these things can be things that can be highly valued too, right?
Yeah, I mean, and maybe you're like, I'm not an academic, I'm not super smart. Well, can you grind it out? Can you do like church building project? Can you be just the guy who hands out 1,000,000 tracts on it? Like, those things are valuable in a church culture. Like, and maybe you're not just in a church culture, so maybe you're in a broader setting. So there's a lot of different things that men can demonstrate competence through, and just find a way to demonstrate that competence that makes you a high status person. And then you just have to give the person that you're interested in attention, and if they value your status, then they're going to be attracted to, like, it's going to feel good to them to talk to you. It's reinforcing. So that's the men's side of thing, Pastor Aaron. Now, I know when I mentioned to this in the show prep, you felt like this was unfair. I feel it's unfair for the guys. We have to get really good at something. Girls just have to show up, man. No, not really. Girls, I'm sorry, this is not going to be happy for some of you, because it doesn't seem very fair. Because men have some control over developing a skill, but for women, men are attracted not necessarily to your social status, although to some degree there's probably that, but realistically, men are attracted to youth and beauty, and your status is tied to the degree to which you can demonstrate youth and beauty. Now, of course, you get too young, and that's a serious problem, and that's not really attractive. But we're talking, people who are approximately your age. We're talking your college age people here. Generally, that's kind of the target audience. So, do you appear to be youthful? Do you appear to be healthy? Are you beautiful? Generally speaking, men find value in attractiveness and health. The good news, though, for women, to offset the unfairness of your status with youth and beauty is basically something you have almost no control over, is that men have a gigantically huge window for what beautiful means. Pretty much all girls are cute for pretty much all guys. The question would be then, what can you do to accentuate the natural beauty that God's given you? Recognize pretty much every woman has some degree of natural beauty. So then you're looking at, how do you make yourself look healthy and look young? And then you're looking at your clothing and hair, makeup. You spend some time in the gym or whatever you got to do, and the better you can present yourself as beautiful, which is essentially a function of youth and health. If you look young and healthy, you're going to be attractive. And Aaron was talking with me before the show started. He's like, yeah, but what if there's somebody who's super cute, but she's just like a jerk?
Yeah.
Like, we'll get to that.
Personality matters, but we haven't gotten there yet.
It does matter. Yeah, it does matter. But as far as personal magnetism, like, let's say you just met someone and you don't know her well enough yet to recognize that she's just a terrible person to be around. If she's super cute and she comes up to you as a guy and she's talking to you and paying attention to you, it's going to be reinforcing. You're gonna like that. And then maybe you find out even within a few minutes, like, she's just this really unpleasantly abrasive person. That's when you're just gonna be like, okay, yeah, we're out. But you'll like it at first because she's very attractive, and that makes her high status as a female, and then she's paying attention to you, and so then you're going to find that reinforcing. So you got your beauty, you have your personal magnetism. Oh, Aaron, I was going to add one other component here.
Okay.
Girls, there's this whole thing, and we talked about it in the previous episode. The world is trying to tell you that you got to get rid of the feminine virtues and try to be just as manly as the men. And I mean, that's like girls can do anything boys can. Well, sure, but that's not the point. Girls are better at doing girl things, so they should be. Anyways, that was the last episode.
Yeah, and I think there's a thing I've heard quoted before. is that the modern feminism movement is kind of like saying men are pigs and women should be pigs too. And
Yeah,
I've heard that said, and that's kind of, makes, it's, that's not the biblical model. That's not what God has
so with that,
mind.
women, the world in a sense is saying you need to go out there, you need to compete, get, push, grow that, go be that CEO. But the problem is, when you hit 35, you're not 25 anymore. And part of your attractiveness is your youth. So maybe you developed the ability to be a CEO, but now your bar for what a high status male is going to be is way higher, because you have to have somebody who's more capable of protecting you than you can protect yourself, more capable of providing than you can provide for yourself. And if you're the CEO of some big company, there's not very many guys who are going to have, more money, more assets, more capacity than you have. And so that's going to be a challenge for you to find somebody. And then also, furthermore, the guys that would be better can get somebody who's got more youth than you do. So recognize that your youth is an asset that is part of what you're putting on the table for the deal of marriage and the covenant of marriage. So recognize men are looking for youth and beauty. Get married younger if you can. That's just a thing. I don't know if that's helpful. I don't want it to be hurtful to anybody. If you've waited, that's fine. God still can set things in motion for you, but there's value in looking at getting married when you're in your youth and not putting it off to pursue a career. I think that would be a mistake in your choices, to put off getting married to pursue a career, especially if you're a lovely young lady. Okay, so then let's transition on to the next point here, Pastor Aaron. We've talked about physical beauty. That's the unconditioned part. You don't have any training for that. Personal magnetism and personality is another way to say it, I guess. And that's your operantly conditioned, we'd call it. But essentially, the stuff that we've learned but we don't think about, the stuff that we just react to. And then the final component that we bring to bear is our demonstration of fitness for marital roles. And then this is the stuff that we do think about, and the stuff that we we'd be putting some words behind. It's our word-based behavior, if we go back to that from previous episodes. So sure. This is the point where we're like, okay, I see this girl, she's cute, she's talking to me and I'm finding that attractive. I'm talking to her, she's finding that attractive, we're hitting it off. All right, now I've got to make some decisions.
So this is kind of like beyond the first meeting.
Exactly. This is the thinking it through. Okay, so at this point, you're going to have to demonstrate your fitness for the marital roles. Now, we talked in detail about what those are in the previous 2 episodes, so go back and watch those if you need to. But men and women at this point need to demonstrate that they're able to engage in that relationship and able to fulfill the marital contract in a way that's going to be beneficial to the other person. So for women, since we're talking on women right now, are you demonstrating that you can care for a family, that you can care for your husband, that you can take care of yourself, that you can manage a household, that you can take care of kids? Demonstrating that fitness for marital roles is going to make you more attractive, because the guy's thinking through, okay, is this somebody I can spend my life with? And the things that they're going to be looking at for developing this strong quality marriage relationship are those things. Men are attracted to your beauty, your grace, and compassion. They want you to have your personal management together. Can you dress well? Are you put together? You know how to do your makeup. You know how to do your hair. He can be proud to have you on his arm at the big, I don't know. What do people go to these days, Pastor? I don't even know. The next big event I'm planning on is graduation. That's where I'm going. Get that PhD done. But can he be confident that you're going to be somebody he can rely on for those things. How are your household skills? Like, man, I know maybe one of my sisters might be annoyed by this, but like, can you cook? Can you clean? Can you decorate? Like, I know in a good relationship, he's going to do some of that stuff for you sometimes, but like, those are things that are valuable to guys who are looking to have a marriage relationship.
Yeah.
Like, you're just demonstrating that you have those skills are ways to be attractive to that person.
Like, for I remember when my wife and I started being interested in each other, she would make it a point. She was the ride for several of us guys to church, and I remember one time specifically she made it a point to make biscuits and gravy and bring us breakfast.
See,
and
and
now
that
I
works.
know she was trying to show, hey, I can cook.
Exactly.
She knew that was important to me.
Because that's the sort of thing that's important to most guys. You would have to be in some kind of unique situation where you are never going to have any sort of like home cooked meals or something for that not to be an important thing, or in some kind of situation where your gender roles would be like if the guy was a chef and he's just going to cook all the meals or something. I don't know. So something like that. Generally speaking, the gender roles that are typical in our culture, like I said before, don't get mad at me. This is all generalized stuff. But women are generally doing the cooking. They're doing the cleaning. They're decorating the house. They're making the decisions about what to buy, when to buy it, and how much and where. And showing that you have that competence in that area, men are going to find that valuable. And then also, do you show that compassion and concern for others? The Bible word for it is that you're not contentious, right?
Right. Proverbs 21:19. It is better to dwell in the wilderness than with a contentious and an angry woman.
Yeah, I can't imagine a lot of guys want that girl who's contentious and angry around. It's like we're talking about the cute girl comes up and talks to you. Does she suddenly like turn and snap and or say something nasty about some other girl or what? Like that's like suddenly guys are like, no, I don't want any part of that drama. I'm out.
Yep.
So is she showing loving and compassion and those things? Those are all demonstrations of fitness for marital roles. For the sake of time, Pastor, and I don't think we can go into the Proverbs 31 woman.
No, but it does really, if you look at Proverbs 31, it really lays out the things that God values, and that if you're seeking to put yourself together as a woman to be attractive to a godly man, these are the things that you should look to.
Yeah, and don't let anybody out there, because sometimes people will preach like, oh, well, it's just an ideal, you couldn't ever do it. No, lots of women have hit the components of a Proverbs 31 woman.
It's not like an absolute perfection thing.
And obviously it's generalized concepts. Like you don't have to be someone who sells clothes, but like industrious, skilled, taking care of her family, making sure her husband's well respected. Like all of these things that are in Proverbs 31 are totally doable, and good women do them, and the best men need that to happen in order for them to be the best men. Like if you see someone who is like, you know, my pastor at our church, Pastor Judge Jackson, he's a fantastic pastor, has been for years. But he's not going to be as successful as he has if his wife wasn't also fantastic. And absolutely. You just can't be good if you don't have a good wife behind you, and that's what Proverbs 31 is.
And that's true in so many areas. But I know from firsthand as a pastor that my wife has taken to heart that her first ministry is to me, and to support me in our ministry in the church, and so that's invaluable. It's something that not everybody sees. But because
two become one, her support of you gives her the status and value that you're earning through your efforts that are supported by her. It's mutually beneficial, and everybody wins. But that was a previous episode. So girls, that's what guys are looking for. If you demonstrate the fitness for your marital roles in that way, men are going to find that attractive, and that's going to help you lock down that relationship and maintain it as you transition into the marital stuff from the previous episodes. Men, you have your responsibilities too. Can you provide for a wife? Can you show love instead of just being, and gruff and just taking what you want? Can you put her first? Can you take care of yourself? Can you lead a household? Right? Like men, if men could just demonstrate that capacity to lead, I think women really, really, really like that a lot more than they would ever let on.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times I think they see men who want all the benefits of being in charge, but don't take the responsibility for leading. And if you can demonstrate that, that's huge for girls, I would guess. Leave a note in the comments. I can't say for sure. I'm not a girl. But men, make sure that you show that you have that capacity to lead. Women, as we mentioned, are attracted to competence. They're attracted to strength and character. They want those attributes. You've got to show that to show that you're fit to fulfill your side of the marital bargain. You got to be able to make money. You got to have a stable job. If you are working at McDonald's right now, you're probably not situated well to be an attractive mate. Now, McDonald's is a great place to work. They make a lot of money there now. I see all the signs on all the buildings there. There's one I drive by that's like $14 an hour, and another one that's like $30,000 a year. It's like we're salaried at McDonald's now. Like, wow. Apparently the one over there that I drive by on the way to work is salaried McDonald's employees. Okay, but regardless, you need to demonstrate that you have a stable job. You're capable of making the money necessary to take care of your family.
Yep.
And you have to have that before you get the family, because the girl's got to trust that you can provide for your half of the role, that you can go out, that you can bring back the firewood, that you can kill the bear and bring the meat back and make it happen. If you can't do that, get so you can, because you're not going to attract somebody without that. Now, and Pastor Aaron, maybe you're in a college setting where you don't have that real job yet, but you have the potential. You're showing that girl, hey, I'm getting this degree in something that matters, and I have these plans. You know, I have this business plan I'm going to enact. I have this teaching license I'm getting, so I'm going to go be a teacher. You know, like whatever you're doing, you're demonstrating I can make money and take care of you. That's going to make you a valuable prospect. Of course, as always, are you dressing well? Are you clean, appropriate style? You know how to take care of yourself. Is your hair cut? Did you shave? Those things all show, hey, I got my life together. You can trust me to fulfill my half of the marital bargain. And another big one, Pastor Aaron, are you emotionally stable? All right, men can get angry and have these big outbursts. It's not attractive.
Yeah.
It's scary to someone.
Aggression can be definitely one of the masculine vices.
It certainly is. It certainly is. And so if you're demonstrating a lot of that, you're looking at being the girl that you're trying to attract is going to see that and be like, oh, that could be dangerous for me because he's got the spear. So if he's that upset, that spear might get pointed at me, and that's not safe.
Right.
So I'm out. So having that emotional stability, you know, there's different ways to do it. Right? Like my wife's dad, my father-in-law, he is like the most calm, stable person I've ever met. He doesn't show any emotion. It's that old German thing, you know, just no emotion, no feeling, just everything's fine always, even if he's really upset. And then you could do it the way like my side of the family does, where we're just like, everything's fine. Yeah. We're like upset, but whatever, you know. Or we'll be yelling at each other, but like laughing and joking and teasing at the same time. So there's different ways. Like you don't have to be the stoic German father-in-law that I love. Yeah. But
I would say the biblical words that come to mind are temperate and
temperance,
meekness.
Right.
And meekness, of course, being strength and power under control.
Right.
And so that you know, aggression.
And if you don't have that strength and power, your meekness is not meekness. You're just weak.
Right.
So you have to have the power. Get the power. Get strong. Get good.
Obviously,
diminish yourself.
Obviously, the pinnacle example of this would be Christ, and we very much see his power under control. And
Moses too is given as an example.
Yes. Yep. Even though he did break the
Yeah, the dude broke a rock in half by hitting it with a stick. He killed somebody when he was a teenager just because. I mean, the guy was obviously not a weakling. Oh, and also he was in charge of everyone in the whole country. He's literally essentially the king.
Millions of people.
he brought that all down, brought that into subjection and under control, and gave that power and the authority to Christ, and that made him listed in the Bible as someone who is gifted with meekness. So
if you have anger problems, you really need to work on getting that under control. Not even just for getting married.
We did an anger episode
for life,
right?
And we did.
Go watch that then.
Yeah.
If you have anger problems, go watch the anger episode. Yeah, for your life, but also you're not attractive if you're not emotionally under control. Girls can lose it a little bit, and guys will be like, they're just women, but men can't be emotionally unstable because women see that as dangerous to them. It's a risk to them, so they're not willing to go forward with somebody who's emotionally unstable. All right, Pastor Aaron, once again, 1 Timothy 3:1-7 gives. It's not quite as solid as the Proverbs 31 woman attributes list, but it's essentially a list of attributes for men.
Yeah, it is. Technically, you go, wait a minute. First Timothy 3, that's the qualifications for a pastor. Yeah, it is. But these are the things that God has said. This is what you should look for. The ideal qualifications to be the leader in a church. So therefore, these are the kinds of things that every godly man should be striving to achieve. Things like being temperate and having a good reputation, being apt to teach. You look through the list and you realize, this is more than just what is required to be a good pastor. These are things that are requirements to be a godly man and a godly leader.
Right. And I can guarantee that if you have all of those attributes listed in 1 Timothy 3, there's not any girl who's not going to find that valuable and attractive. So pull that together and be that 1 Timothy man, and I think you're going to find a lot of value to be offering out there as you seek to find someone who's picking up what you're putting down, as it were. Pastor Aaron, as we need to wrap up this final point before we go, I guess you could. We've listed it as make yourself available, but realistically, you can't catch fish in an empty pond. Okay, so let's say you got yourself together, you've got a great job, you've got your life right, you're attractive, you're high status, you're able to demonstrate your fitness for the marital relationship, but you don't know any women. Well, you're probably going to have a hard time getting married. So, look, you got to find people if you're going to find somebody. We've talked about behavioral economics before, but you're going to have to decide, okay, is the extra effort I'm going to need to put in to being in a place where there are people to potentially consider, is that worth, is the effort of being there worth the reward of finding somebody? And I think for a lot of people, often because this stuff is so stressful and there's so many unknowns and anxieties tied to it, that it can be something that we avoid because it's hard and kind of just feel like we can put off. But
yeah, I think sometimes too, the putting yourself out there can be kind of scary. Especially
it really is.
From my perspective as a guy, the rejection but it, guys, if I can just encourage you, it's worth it. Muster up the courage and take a shot, take your chance, put yourself out there, and
recognize too, you don't have to go do that blindly.
No,
go through the stuff we just talked about. Like, if you have yourself put together the right way, like we've been talking about in this episode, and you go up to that girl, and you're gonna have an easy time of it. It'll work. Like, that's the stuff that makes it work. So, do that stuff, and maybe it's not going to work to get married, but you're at least not going to be like blown off immediately. Probably.
So do we have any suggestions on different ways that can do that. I mean, obviously, Bible college for us was a
mean,
good
that's
way to do that.
Depending on your age. Like if you're 35, Bible college is probably a pond with fish that are too young. But if you're coming out of high school, I'd recommend everybody go to Bible college. I mean, even if, like, man, I know it's expensive and debt's a thing, but you're gonna live for a long time. You can pay off your debts later. you can't go. You're gonna have a lot harder time. Well, only a little bit though, to be honest.
Yeah.
You can suffer some debt, especially in your youth, assuming that you're actually getting a degree that's worth money. Like, don't go to Bible college and get a degree in like basket weaving, which they don't have. So actually, you'd probably be able to make money from basket weaving.
Yeah, get a degree in basket weaving.
That's actually probably a decent one. Baskets are expensive, man. No, but okay, so yeah, if you like, you grew up in Christian school or whatever, and you're like, everyone else went off to Bible college and you stayed home. Well, that's it. Like, you're in an empty pond now, and you probably already assessed the prospects if you've been in Christian school for a while, and if you haven't found one there,
right?
Yeah. So going to Bible college is a great way to do it.
But if you missed that, are you out of luck?
I mean, I don't think so. Obviously, you're not.
No, I think there's church functions for sure. Although maybe you're in a small church that's not a lot. I mean, there's different opportunities, maybe conferences or.
I think finding something that would be. I think it's too individualized. It depends on your own life circumstances.
Yeah.
And also too, you can rely a lot on friend networks and things like that.
I think that was what I was going to go towards. Was I think friend networks is a big thing. Maybe you have. I know the whole setting up with, somebody setting you up with their friend or whatever. But
and maybe it's just be open to that. It's not the worst thing that could happen.
Yeah.
I think it would depend on what you have available in your area and in your means and your capacity. It depends on your age as well, what your networking is like.
I know, just part of getting yourself out there. I know one thing, thinking about going back and telling myself, about some of these things. I think one of the things I would tell myself is don't put so much pressure on it. Just, you've met a girl, you've been talking, you're kind of friends. Just say, hey, you want to go, go get some coffee sometime or go, go to the dining hall and get some food. I know this great place on campus that has all the food you can eat.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay. I was never very smooth.
So don't take your lines from Pastor Aaron's, guys.
No, don't do that.
But honestly, you won't really need any lines. Just go up and talk to people. Be a high status person who's put together, who's valuable. Recognize your value and the effort you put into it. Just, you can go up and talk to someone. No, it's not high risk unless you make it high risk. Okay, because once you've made yourself a valuable candidate, I mean, at that point, you're just shopping. So, and when you and the other person both want to buy the contract together, then you got it locked in and it's a win. It's easier than it feels, probably, if you have your life together. Because I know I had so many embarrassing relationship failures in college. Really, really dumb stuff that I did. But then when I started getting my life together, that's when it all started happening. So make yourself available, get yourself put together first, and then go out and make it happen.
Yeah. It's like the Bible says, Proverbs 18:24, a man that hath friends must show himself friendly.
Yeah, and if you're not out there making friends, then you're not gonna get what you want. So go do it, guys. Pastor Aaron, it is time to wrap up, of course. And so, do you have a final challenge for us before we go?
I think as we're challenging ourselves, it's going to be kind of a self-examination, going down the list of some of the things we talked about. How is my attractiveness? Am I put together? Just evaluating myself. And as I said before, it's just like in marriage, don't focus on what other people can do. Focus on me. If I'm having problems in finding a relationship, if every relationship that I'm trying to find, every person I'm interacting with is not working out, maybe I'm the problem. So focus on me. What are the things that I can do? Maybe I can be better groomed. Maybe I can be better put together. Maybe I can exhibit the feminine or masculine virtues in a better way. So do some self-examination and work on some of these things.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, best of luck to all of you as you do work on those things. As we close here, I'd like to say thank you to Pastor Aaron and, of course, the church there over in Huron, South Dakota, for sponsoring the show. Thank you to our editor and to you, our viewers. Get out there, have a wonderful day, and choose God in God's way.